I'm kind of in the camp where I still am in thinking we have a near-term pump, right? So I do think that complacency is there. I think there's a lot of bears out there in Bitcoin and crypto land. And so for me, looking at the charts, it also confirms it. In fact, let's bring up a chart right now so we can take a look. So what we basically have is this beautiful wedge pattern, right? You take the highs going back to May, it connects perfectly to the high in August, which then connects perfectly to September, and then all the way through here. And then same thing from the June low, you can kind of connect these lows. Now, what you're seeing here in the near term is this hammering on this resistance line. And I'm in the camp that I do think eventually we're gonna break through this, which will give us a near term, and I stress near term, but a near-term pop, potentially as high as 20,000. The reason I'm getting 25,000. The reason I'm getting 25 is basically by taking a parallel from these lows and stretching it up, and basically looking like this would be the upper range of that parallel line connected through this point here. So I think that's a possibility. I think that would get a lot of people very, very bullish. But one of the things we have to recognize is that this, and even a pop to 25,000, it's still inside of a macro bearish pattern, right? So you have the down move here, all inside bar action, even up to here, and therefore my midterm is still for further downside. So I'm near-term bullish, midterm still bearish. I still don't think we have a bottom in Bitcoin yet. Yeah, so I understand the midterms angle and the Fed angle right there, but really if we look at the chart, what's so interesting is that the wedge pattern ends, and this is where the point is, right around the October 29th-ish area. What that tells me is that you're going to either get a breakout or a breakdown between now and then, right? I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow or if it's going to be on the 29th, but price is going to be forced out of this wedge pattern. And usually what we see, especially following these really quiet periods in any asset, is that when you get that break, it's explosive. So again, my guess is we actually see the beginning of the move before the Fed and before the midterms. Whether or not it continues in that direction when we get the Fed in the midterms, that's another story. But I think it actually will happen probably in the next week, as we see here by the 29th.
Hello guys, and welcome to another video of Crypto Money Talk. Gareth Soloway, who predicted Bitcoin would retrace back to $20,000 at the height of $60,000, has suddenly altered his mind and believes that the shorter pumps we are witnessing now will be retraced and that the bottom is not in yet. Gareth has also highlighted how one should trade in such scenarios and how a good investor invests in the market conditions. And along with his predictions and experience about Bitcoin bottom, he has also stated the more Bitcoin goes lower, the more he will be buying. So to hear his analysis about Bitcoin in both scenarios, watch the video till the end.
You can see today alone, this is the 10-minute chart, you can see when the dollar was falling, we did see Bitcoin rally up, and then as the dollar bounced back and went higher, we saw Bitcoin kind of come down. So you do see that, kind of that opposite move going on. But the interesting thing, and you're bringing up a really good point here, is that if we go to the daily chart, you're not seeing, the dollar's been going higher quite a bit, but Bitcoin's not going lower in the bigger time frame. And the positive to that, I don't think it's manipulation. I think it's a combination of, number one, you do see a little accumulation probably by smart money here. Number two, I do think that with all the currency issues going on, so we see the dollar, I mean, look at some of these charts. Let's go back to charts. Like, let's look at the USD JPY. I mean, look at this move up in the dollar yen. So you have that. Then you have the Bank of England already intervening because the pound is collapsing. Then you have the euro, which is now below par with the dollar. And I really think that some of these other citizens of these countries are probably putting a little bit of money into Bitcoin to try to protect themselves from what's going on with the dollar and their own currency. So I think there's a combination, but either way, it's a really healthy thing for Bitcoin to do. Right? I love when Bitcoin starts to behave abnormally from what we're used to, and that's what we've seen on the daily chart recently. Yeah, and not only that, but like there are situations where I have targets that based on the current factors is the target, and then you can actually see that target change, meaning that you may not even achieve that target, and all of a sudden a good trader will update it and say, I thought Apple was going to go to $75, but based on the information now it's 95 or now it's 100. So you have to, people kind of, whatever you write, especially on Twitter, is like in stone, it like can never change, and they hold you to it. But really in the world of investing and trading, the best best traders are the ones that do adjust. Anyone who stays rigid, they're the ones that get crushed. It's important to kind of have an open mind where, especially on an asset as recent as Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, I mean, yes, it's been 4-year cycles, but there's only been 3 of them, right? So, I mean, you know, it's only been around for 12, 13 years. So you don't have that history of like a stock market or anything. And no, I was just going to say, and you're 100% right. I mean, it's a tricky scenario, right? Because you have certain things that are going to come up with the Federal Reserve. So number one is they're going to at some point stop hiking, and that's going to be that first pivot. But stopping hiking and keeping interest rates, let's say the Fed funds rate is at 4% at that point, that doesn't equate to printing money again. It's just they stopped raising. So that's kind of that first pivot. Then the next pivot would be when the economy really starts getting into a bad recession, they'll start dropping rates, which does increase liquidity in the system, but it's not quantitative easing yet, right? And so then you have that final one, which I do think would create that bull market again for sure, which is where they actually start quantitative easing again. So there's kind of like a 3-step to the Fed, you know, turning things around, which then would create that bull market. And by the way, I don't necessarily think Bitcoin needs that to have a bull market. It's just really, really helpful. So believe it or not, you know, so I was originally in the well, once we got to 20, I said, okay, now 12 to 13,000 is my upside, my high end target. Now everyone's saying that, and that makes me nervous. I'm like, okay, it's either not going to get there or it's going below. I'm in the camp that it probably goes below. And so interestingly enough, I'll show you where my current kind of zone will be, and it is below 10,000. So certainly I'm still a buyer below 10,000. But let's take a look. Let's do a trend line here. And if we go to our weekly chart and we go back here, so let's take a look here, right? So what if we take just before the first bull run in 2017, we put a little trend line and we connect it through this low, all the way through there. And that target is right around, let's say, 8,000. Now, it's an upsloping trend line, so in a few months, it'll be slightly above that. But that's kind of like where I could see this thing coming back to that longer-term trend, and it makes a lot of sense. And I'm in the camp where, like, you know, if you really think about other bear markets, like in the U.S. and the stock market in 2009, I mean, there was literal panic out there. People wouldn't even open up their trading platforms. It was so nasty, right? And you go back to the .com collapse, same thing. You go back to various commodity collapses. And I don't think we've seen that in crypto. Like, I don't see people saying crypto's done, it's over, it's not going to be anything. And that's what to me would mark a bottom. So I kind of feel like we need to almost go below 10,000 just to get that fear and panic and people kind of throwing in the towel effect. And then maybe we can actually see a bottom. So I actually do think we probably do pierce 10,000 on Bitcoin, and I will be absolutely buying it there. Bear markets are where you actually get the opportunities, right? It's where Bitcoin was 65, and instead of buying it at 65 or 69, I mean, you're getting, even here at 19, you're getting a great opportunity where, I mean, I literally, when I was making the calls of going to 20 and we were at 65, 69, people were like on Twitter, like, I will sell my kidney to be able to buy Bitcoin there. Of course, no one's selling their kidney right now, right? But people have that opportunity. I mean, you basically can buy 3+ Bitcoins for what you were paying for 1 Bitcoin back in just a year ago. And so opportunities are made here. It's all about, are you going to hold your thesis? Is the thesis still valid for Bitcoin? Yes, it is, in my opinion. You just had too much liquidity in the market, and cycles are cycles. You got to get the washout.